maybe 30 seconds. Okay. There you go.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the evaluation on President Jeanette and approve the contract for this coming year and roll over to.
It was seconded by John. Any other discussion before we vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
She's the pressure now. And just sign it for it.
Scared some of the staff yesterday. Brought this up. It's a good thing.
We're getting worried.
Is the only one we have, or do we have this whole stack tonight?
No, that's the change.
Okay.
President's report. Brett, we're at the chamber thing today. You got the copy of the report there. From the analyst for chamber development. This is initial steps that we came up with in terms of strength. WTC is a proposal signed for the Center Scholarship. Posting trust for $145,000 towards healthcare, salaries, talent attraction stipends. So a lot of good stuff there. All of the state appropriations were approved last week by K-Board. Some other things happening. We had a Cam here for new role as special advisors to strategic initiatives. We're talking about some grants to go after the Patterson family. Trust has reached out to her and she's also adding a team. It's all known, so that role. Glad to answer the question.
So the 145. That's for two that are here and two new.
For however we need to do.
However, we
Take her. So for instance, she had got an application yesterday for an MSN qualified, master's qualified nurse. Perfect. It's also designed to be used off existing faculty stipends so we can keep them. And with the CNA position, we get a second CNA instructor who's signing things, so we have flexible ways to use the funds to secure the talent to drive the program outcomes.
you've been guaranteed that.
3 years.
With any increase or it's just 140 each year.
Because we are, all the 2-year colleges are working on the legislature, so it's not like also started discussions with those tech and Salina Tech's presidents on collaborating. One of those areas, training healthcare, Salina Tech has a nursing instructor, special training in similar. So one of our discussions, summers on is that something we can collaborate on using that person, get that salary and access to that curriculum, if we see better learning outcomes. State Board of Nursing, their accreditation agency, helping us keep pushing collaboration.
What's the ask for?
Renewal of 200,000. But frankly, the city is, for the last meetings, Harry shared with me, Jason Hilbert was telling them they're going to cut some costs. They don't have funds to use for a lot of things. So our report again, when we presented last year, the I'm sharing again tonight is based on here's what describes distinct building sales tax, property tax potential. Plus the report this morning, this is the investments we drive. See.
In the paper that Jason could talk about staff. Anytime you talk staff, they're going to always ask about some programs.
They asked about what transfer.
Well, they're gonna, I say, Jason came out and talked about staff reduction. Said they'll always pass first the commissioners. What about some programs? Maybe they would be specific, but they'll have like a program.
They're gonna want-
all of them.
They're gonna want to cut or reduce external requests,
Right,
if they're not obligated.
that's right. That's what, it's a non-obligated. I
I mean,
mean,
the Discovery Center and the zoo are pretty high costs. It's in ours is a little bit in terms of showing here's what you're investing in packages, sales tax revenue. Righty. What's next? EG updates, Josh.
So on this one, pay app 18, we're getting closer to the end. The big noticeable thing here is that if you happen to kind of keep track of the last one to this one, is the amount of contingency drastically dropped, but the reason that hit on this one was because this had that furniture package that we approved through contingency. So that hit that line item and knocked it down pretty heavily. The other thing in contingency there was just along the way back through the drawings or in communication, the shop sinks got left out. So each bay, we wanted a shop sink for them to wash up. So that was also put in contingency. Contingency still looking good to finish out the project since we're almost there. And you'll see when we go on the tour later. And then the majority of this pay app was anything from finished carpentry, some Manco, Midwest drywall, flooring, a lot of painting, and finishing up the fire sprinkler system, and some electrical was at about 85% in this one. As far as schedule goes, the South Drive that had gotten all torn up from the traffic coming in and out, I don't know if you noticed over there, that's all been replaced and reopened. One issue, one of the subs when pouring the front entrance is into each of the vestibules, the main entry, something on their drawing, they got off and poured it a little bit off kilter. So it was on them and it was a mistake. So they're replacing it. That has the electrical heating element in there for the ice right where the entryway is. So it's kind of complicated from that aspect. So they got it torn out right now and they should be pouring it hopefully later this week, getting that addressed. The flooring, all the basing's complete. A lot of the contractor punch list is all done. You'll see over there that we're missing some signage. So Thomas Sign will be installing all their interior and exterior this week. Shirley has some of the exterior they're doing next week. All the irrigation for all the trees and shrubs and all those things is all completed and they're putting the plants in this week. Our safe defend active.
Cactus.
Yeah, that's probably the safe defend active shooter system's all done. And then separate from that building, if you remember, we were gonna have that wall cut out in the Auto Tech Bay to expand that. That's been completed and they're now putting on doing the masonry work just to clean up where they made the cuts. So that'll be done. Contractors are moving out. When we go over there, you'll see kind of the big remaining thing is the BSL-3 lab, which will drag on a little bit. That's still being worked on with TCA, and then Brad at OSC is kind of our lead on that whole project, and he's doing a lot of work with a lot of partners to see about getting some of their equipment donated. So the remaining contingency is kind of being held on until we see what exactly all we get donated in there, what we have to purchase. But there's room to purchase that contingency if we have to.
The unique thing with that lab, we're designing a lab to fail. We want the systems to fail so the students learn here's how to fix this. Last week we had to go back to science. She was here for a big K-State, spent time with us. She has a bit of a biotech background. Spent time with us. She was like, wow. Ocean. That facility support is really, like I said before, that's the added strength of K-State and the chamber. Bioscience chip manufacturing, our ability to support high-tech facility. Okay, I'm by the south side of the building, tech is on the south side. Big graphic.
Yep.
Any questions on PHE?
Next thing, the front con.
Yep.
Okay, so the front concourse project that was approved, the subs have now submitted their bids to BHS. Everything's coming in under budget or on target, so no concern there budget wise. We did get the contract completed. They did get in there the liquidated damages. If they were to extend it past August 16th, and the way we had them write it out, they were concerned about like if it was finishing up a little bit of signage or something like that. So the goal is to get our entry back so people can come in and out. So they wrote the language as area of work that denies access to the building. So anything past August 16th that would deny any access to the building, that would be $250 per day. So that did get included in the contract. And everything looks good. They should start on that demo possibly by the very end of this week, if not then first thing next week.
Good. Is there any next week?
Feels open, not this week. Orientation. Questions on that?
Board member terms and updates. Harry and I have two potential candidates that we're still working on finalizing. Board, Stephanie Pierce, Director Spark, Dan Strong from Farm Bureau IT. Got some feelers out as well. So that in August we might try to work on. Usually we've had 2 or 3. Chair. Chair. Will's not here, but Brett. We have courtesy of Susie, because she is the queen of all this.
Is it full of tacos from Taco Luz?
And rolling. Your service as chair has been much appreciated by all of us, but especially me. And we frequently talk the day after board meeting, it's not to complain about y'all. We are all impressed with you. You hold us accountable, which is supposed to be, but you also are interested in how we keep driving innovation and outcomes. Brett, your guidance with me on some issues this year, super much appreciated. Later staying on board.
Sound good.
Really, you're serving as chair. It's helped more. Appreciate that.
Susie's excited.
Oh, cool. It's a take home gavel.
And be using self-defense as needed.
Thanks, guys. It's been an honor to serve in this position. So appreciate all of you guys. It's good college. It looks like a pullover in here as well. I'm not gonna put it on because it's 100 degrees.
Come on.
Thank you.
This morning, that meeting, Heather and Brett, you're not there for the college, but you're there seeing those results. I had a bunch of people come to me afterwards, like, geez, you guys are the stars.
Yeah.
It's not.
It was a proud moment to hear a lot of, I was saying, a lot of things that definitely a star. See.
Interim budget, as always, we've worked with you to provide an interim budget while we wrap up negotiations. We did have a good negotiation session with the faculty reps yesterday, but the rest of the faculty won't be back to August in service. Optimistic that the August board meeting. Contract, bargaining contract. This is interim budget. So authorization to spend money, especially. 99.
Is it possible to get an actuals from years past, last?
Yeah, we can block.
To look at this?
Do you want it categorized comparable to this, or would you like to see the breakout of? Because I mean, it's just the detailed actuals is thousands and thousands.
Things that just match the.
Match those ones.
This category, yeah.
Okay, we got 2025 budget. We got 2024 budget.
Those 2023 actual.
Yeah.
I can say that the state regents are starting to call into your colleges to discuss financials. Because one of the community colleges got in trouble with federal financial aid distribution. And all of the community and tech colleges and other universities would stand on the state's full faith and credit for financial aid. If we did not have that, we would have to have this bank able to that's revised financial aid. Right? Also, the state had to bail out Fort Scott Community College, which was about $1 million in the hole. So the regions, rightly so, are a little more concerned about some oversight. Again, we've also, our audits of public record, they have access to some more of that oversight. It's good as hell.
24 column with those, is that original budget or did we pull actuals?
No, we didn't.
Those are
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're close.
Yeah.
Two actuals is
Yeah.
one, so yeah.
So when would you have that?
I mean, I can work.
No, I'm just, I mean, normally.
Yeah, I mean, really by. I mean, because that's now we're able to pull it out of Genspar. It's not like this TDSP.
Could we, as a board tonight, approve, so you guys can spend, that if you can send out actuals for 23. So you can send out to Harper over something that they say it's like to discuss it.
Yeah.
What is the interest income? Who are we making interest on? It's 50 grand a year.
So we actually put that as a kind of lower estimate, just because we know that interest rates can always vary. That's one thing that I think we'll talk about again next with trying to extend the landmark contract is we actually made closer to 160,000 in interest last year just from our operating funds.
Just savings account, yeah.
It's the base operating
rate.
So when miscellaneous fees go up that much.
So that it's not necessarily that we didn't increase any student fees. I think we just kind of been broken down the categories and categories better. And so that's just all the different fees. I think last year we really only included like graduation fee, but we also have like an application, parking permit fees. We just put every single like small little fee that they pay this year.
The good news is with, I think, figuring on this budget wise, pretty conservative on, on the 8,000 credit hours for the credit hour fee on the income side, but then going down and still, I've never hardly seen that here or shown such a surplus. So that's what's going to help be able to get those reserves going.
We are planning, this is based on basically level enrollment.
I was gonna ask, is the increase just because of the increase in fees?
Which, no, not.
Not, sorry, not fees, increase in tuition, did we raise that?
Okay.
So that the delta between last year and this year is just because of the additional.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, not expecting higher tuition yet. That's just because of the increases.
This group, especially Karen, Josh, Carey, were we have improved by 1,000%. Funds. Joshua's, literally, I walked into, they were still doing everything on paper ledgers. I didn't know if they were stood. So. it always get better. But it's
So explain how salaries go down and
Well, no, that's just due to turnover. The salaries is due to just turnover. That's why it's increased, obviously. We have negotiations on that. Benefits went up because of the increase in use.
Yeah, so there's no, the COLA during negotiations, it's not applied here, so that would obviously bring that up a little bit and bring our surplus down.
about how much would you think that would be?
Of what-
Yeah, the goal is.
It's a code.
What's your, the number that's being
About-
looked at?
About 300.
I'm not looking for a decimal point, but
180?
I think, yeah, it was close to around.
so the 800,000 different 600,000.
And that surplus is actually even,
Complaining.
Maybe if we have enrollment growth and all.
yeah, that 800 is even in surplus of showing that 500 already set aside for reserve, so that's up and above that.
Should be less than 200.
So Caterpillar, I realize they're looking at something in place, but that doesn't usually happen. So what happens to the students that are here to go welding so they can go to Caterpillar? Nearby or?
Caterpillar didn't really recruit a ton of our students this year anyway.
No, it didn't get off the ground because they were already safe. I've been doing this conversations with Congress. There are at least, I don't give too much away, there's at least 2 regional similar companies that won't get there. One of them.
Does Congress have a program that helps work displaced workers?
They pulled the trigger on that, yeah, but what you do, once it's fired up. I'm on a task force for that group, who's to represent me at that meeting, it's on ego. That's where we can start digging into that. Part of it is also timing, because Caterpillar is way. We'll start that process of other super top and have these skills. I know Congress is pushing to see if they can get this other approach done. So, realize they can keep the job again.
So is there any potential in recruiting instructors?
Possibly.
That's all you have.
I think there's more than potential.
Well, I talked.
We're on a need to know basis.
Our 2 current welding instructors came in my office and were pretty darn happy that they weren't here the other day, so.
Yeah,
Just add in, we'll get the actuals out to you as soon as we can.
yeah, is everybody good with that? Is there any other asterisks you want to put on this? If not, I can take a motion. Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Accreditation criteria 5. My favorite of the 5 criteria, because it's about looking into the future and resources. And Kim and I have talked with our HLC liaison officer, and by email, we've talked with our team leader. Each visit.
Did we miss the landmark?
Well, we got
Skip one.
Too excited.
Sorry.
List.
Okay, Landmark, yeah. You saw in the packet we're requesting an extension for a lot of. I'll let Karen jump in at any time, but part of it is working with them, like with the interest earnings we have with some of the other business services to help automate, put in that defense layer of double checking stuff. We're in an interesting position. Work with Landmark and work with AS Bank. Stuff. Things we have going with Landmark in some key areas. We help Kara out, streamlining some things, but also making the data more accurate. Kara, anything like that?
Yeah, basically what Jim said, we want to be able to keep working with both. This last year, I think we mentioned we started like a lockbox at Kansas State Bank, so all of our checks are processed there just to make that more automated. So then they just send us a file every day and say who's the checks you received. So we've just got really good things in place right now with our business office, especially with all the turnover we've had in the past year. That now we finally get our processes automated, so that way that happens at Kansas State Bank, and then we transfer it to Landmark so that we can get the great interest rate. Just everything's been really streamlined this past year. So, and everyone at Landmark, it's just been really great to work with. And so we just didn't really want to have it in that relationship.
Didn't see any difference in the extension. It's just more, just.
Grant plus 24.
Gets us to a point after the end of 24 months where we do an RFP, but it gets us to this transition of the building campaign funds. Moving into better automation, transparency, accountability, this is a better position to make that next RFP more detailed and more.
Yeah, I was looking for an asterisk. Move that we continue with our relationship with Landmark.
All in favor, say aye.
Right? I'm just looking,
No,
I'm used to board action.
Well, we're losing board members, so.
excuse the term, but some of the reason we made the extension, wanted to extend service. Criterion 5. We have been educating our team leader and our agency liaison on our mission, why our strategic vision, planning, that's not yeah.
You should have this handout for criterion 5 in your packet. It matches the handouts that you received for the other criterion in the past. With criterion 5, it's resources planning and institutional effectiveness. So essentially, this is where you see all of the strategic plan, the budgeting, all of your oversight kind of come together at one location. HLC wants to make sure that we're moving forward intentionally and we're putting our money where our mouth is, and then we're kind of doing all the things we say we're going to do, not just on paper, but in our actions. So that's what criteria 5 is essentially about. 5A just says that through its administrative structures and collaborative processes, the institution's leadership demonstrates that it's effective, enables the institution to fulfill its mission. So for example, we have a shared governance structure, we have board members who are active within as board members and within the community. We have data that is shared within the appropriate teams and with senior administrative staff to review. We analyze that data, you will get that information as well. We're just being able to fulfill your duties as board members. 5B is the institution's resource base, supports its educational offerings, and its plans for maintaining and strengthening their quality. All have been discussing this all meeting long, right? I think you have a pretty good concept of that. You had a lot of campus updates in the past 5 years. Our strategic plan is aligned with our mission, our vision, and our values of the college. And we have some grants that we've been utilizing over the past 5 to 10 years as well in order to be able to make a lot of our strategic goals happen. And then for the last one, 5Z, the institution engages in systematic and integrated planning and improvement. That's kind of where they want everything to come together, right? This is where they want our strategic plan, not only to link to our mission, visions, values, but also to link up to other initiatives within the state. So you'll notice a lot of times when Jim talks about the plan or what we're doing, talks about how this meets KBOR strategic initiatives, how it might meet AGLC initiatives. And that's what they want to see is kind of that energy and that intentionality and being systematic with our planning. We have a follow-up report where we track our students' employment information as well as their wages. That's a lot of our assessment of our individual programs because our mission is getting students out into our workforce. And then additionally, we have PACs and builds, have individual program accreditations, certifications, ensure that we're kind of maintaining that relationship with the community. And that our curriculum that we're providing is doing everything it needs to meet the area's needs. Is that fast enough? That's what I have to.
Tim's also been working with folks to start orienting staff this summer about HLC. I'll have a cheat sheet for y'all.
They got a 3.5 hour version of what I just said to you, plus the past work meeting, so you got the shorter version.
The HLC team leader wants us to post schedule. Are meeting all these criteria.
And anticipation still October.
That's still. Next session. Policy updates. So
Disagree.
we are not going to go through the detail unless you have questions. The motion we want are requesting is because there are a lot of conflicts right now between the feds and the state on Title IX, on some personnel issues. So what we're going to ask you for at the end of all this is to direct administration to continue to monitor state and federal issues and ensure that the institutions do it can be in compliance. Peter's here to talk about the personnel items. But Neil's going to give a real fast time line, which changes hourly. And so working with them, so what we're going to ask the board to do is just direct us to keep monitoring things, do the best we can to waffle back. State Attorney General, or think we state funding, we do federal stuff, we're other state, say you don't get back federal financial aid. Bigger issue, start with Peter's on the changes in federal overtime regs. We did a little update last month. We have a plan in place to meet. We have 6 people on it. Threshold starting with July 1 change. That bigger things is the January 1 threshold doesn't change.
18.
Oh
Well,
we've got 18 people that we will work on early fall because we have to live with the threshold of that hourly. Which concerns me with talent. So Peter, let's have you start with overtime real quick and personnel items kind of overview.
so with the new rules, basically an employee that isn't making a certain salary amount by those dates of January 1st and July 1st of this year will have to be labeled as non-exempt or hourly. So with that, the first policy update that we have is for time cards and leave requests. Previously, leave requests was a separate policy, which was 781. And we would just like to integrate those into one new form policy for the sake of simplicity and easy communication with employees and potential hires and understanding what to expect with regard to timekeeping and time cards. So really the changes that were made here are primarily just to make sure that they are clear with regard to what employees are expected to do, how time cards are kept. One of the requirements of us as an employer when it comes to monitoring non-exempt employees is to make sure that we have record of their time so that they have accurate pay and that overtime is applied as needed. So this basically just updates the policy in that regard. It includes information on overtime, how that is paid up, what options employees have with regard to flexible scheduling to avoid overtime and working with their supervisor in that regard as well. So if you have questions on this particular policy, please let me know.
On the, you mentioned time cards, are those electronic?
Yes.
Is there any way for accuracy on overtime? You know, on claiming overtime, can it be tied to the badge, or is it tied to the badge system for when they scan in or scan out of the building or anything like that?
So our time card system doesn't actually have a scan in, scan out. It's not that type of system. It's essentially just a record of time.
Okay,
So the employee goes.
it's just a
and they
manual
put-
input.
Right, they manually input their time and whatever gets entered at the end of the pay period is reviewed and approved by both them and the supervisor.
Okay. Just a question, I want to see how the process works.
That's a good question. So the reason that we were wanting board approval of this is primarily because it's that incorporation of 7(8), which we would no longer need as this now is all.
You want us to do each one individually or do them as a lump
I'd
sum?
rather do.
Okay.
So the next policy is in regards to benefit accruals or leave benefits. The reason for this is currently there's a distinction in regards to benefit accruals of leave for non-exempt versus exempt positions. And like Jim said, with 80 of our staff going likely to non-exempt, or at least a number of those employees going to non-exempt, we wanted to simplify the process for that change for them. And then also ensure that it's the policy is meeting what we as an organization can do with regard to legal for employees.
Instead of going bumping salary, may just go hourly.
I know we won't move all of them to the salary threshold. Some are gonna be, but we're gonna take it on a case by case basis, looking at their job duties. Quick ballpark figure, if we try to move them all to the threshold plus the increase in benefits, would be around $350,000.
What is your overtime? Or do you really have? As far as that kind of
Yeah.
balance?
Added, asked, looked at the way the feds have the rules written. Correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, but like our work week for staff is basically from 12 to 1 Sunday morning to 11 to 9 p.m. Saturday night. There are ways to kind of manipulate that because we have certain times of year where open house, commencement, things like that, we would have quite a few staff who qualify for it. So it's a combination of the changes we make, plus some of these changes we just brought up on the leave accrual, which were set up 2 decades ago. And times were different versus now I want to simplify it, keep it where it's easier for us to both attract and keep people. Our benefits are one of our key attractions for people. At the same time, make things accountable back to performance. Neil needs to know that you've got the people both house there and be, oh, I'm done, I've only got my 40 hours there. So that juggling of some key times of the year, overtime's approved in advance, it has to be, they have to do the leave within that same time period, correct?
Yes, so you can either adjust the work week for the flexible scheduling, or you can do compensatory time after the fact.
So it has to be within that certain time period.
Right, and it has to be agreed upon by the supervisor.
Yes.
And fall within the same pay period.
So they work
Right.
45 hours one week and they only work 35 the following week. Is
If
that
the
so as it
if the pay period is set up correspond with that.
Like if it's an hourly maintenance had to come in on a Sunday, because the first guy worked 4 hours, then that same week, we put them like Friday, then. work
They
4
can
hours.
flex time.
Flex it out. We've done.
Is that, how are you managing? Is that all verbal or, I mean, I know I'm.
Typically, the supervisor works for
It's not written, it's,
but with these changes, we've got to make it more standard.
right, yeah, that's.
You might have 2 weeks of chaos, you know, where you're gonna get like
From the week after spring break through commencement, it is chaos.
ready.
And again, to the feds, this was an executive decision, and there's no regard to any other difference of businesses or geographic locations in the country, it's in politics. And I'm not, I don't want to deny people a fair wage, but I can't afford it.
That same week thing is coming not from internal, it's coming from
Feds.
Where we're looking at it, and overtime is something that we. First, it's based upon. Census and.
Healthcare, you gotta have those people. You've just done a good job working with this, to keep it where it's something you can manage.
On the leave request on vacation. Does each supervisor set when they want that, 72-hour notice, 48-hour notice, things like that, or is it, hey, I'm gonna take off tomorrow?
So there are
Yes
some.
to all of the above.
Okay.
Yeah, there are general rules in policy that say an employee should provide notice at least for equal to the duration of time that they're asking off. So a
Okay.
week off, give at least a week advance notice.
Sure.
However, it's based on the supervisors and what they communicate to the employees with regard to what's expected.
Like I said, it's lax, it's more been informal conversations.
Sure.
Things come up are small enough, but these chances we have to be more strict.
So the next one is just an update with regard to adjunct pay. This does not need any motion or anything. It's basically just updating the per credit per semester pay amounts for adjuncts to keep those positions competitive. We see a lot of industry positions go up, and with that, we have to match that and make sure our positions for adjunct instructors are competitive as well. It also includes hourly rate for healthcare clinical adjunct positions. That's a little bit further down. Yep, right there. Those are the only changes in that.
And with the pay rate, we're able to attract
So far.
adjunct staff. Good.
Should be.
Okay.
Okay. There's no handbook.
Yep. So the last thing, as far as personnel updates go, is the employee handbook. So highlighted, in the handbook section, items in blue are changes entered based on either, things to keep the handbook up to date with regard to like contact information, for policy statements, things that keep us, consistent with what we actually are able to do internally through operations. And just things that match with current policy, where that's all at, it's all internal changes. Things highlighted in green are those that were recommended by legal counsel and HR partners.
else? We'll all of your saying keep this stupid short.
Yes, my policy is the longest one. Very sorry, everyone. The equal opportunity harassment and non-discrimination policy on attachment 13. Essentially what that's doing is replacing our current sexual harassment policy 3.7.2. And it's basically taking our equal opportunity policy and combining it down into one policy. This works for the Title IX regulations that just came out, so it's to have us compliant come August 1 if we have to be. Obviously, the feds have the August 1st deadline. Obviously, our state has sued the federal government. Currently, we're not in an injunction like some of the other states are, where they don't have to comply come August 1st. But obviously, if you meet that component, once those lawsuits are done, we basically have to day one be in compliance with that standard. So this gets us in compliance with how it's currently written. I did not just pull this out of the air and read the 1,500 pages of regs that the Department of Ed came out with. I mean, I perused it, but we are part of the Association of Title IX Administrators at TICSA. Basically, it's a bunch of lawyers that know a whole lot more about non-discrimination, equal opportunity and whatnot, and they wrote a one policy, one procedure that's compliant with Title IX. And as a member, we basically get to rip that policy off and use it for our campus and ensure compliance and know that it's been vetted through and used extensively in most colleges. It is still undergoing revisions because the federal government has decided to tweak some things. So that's where Jim is saying that allow us grace to make sure it continues to stay in compliance as they find some gaps that might exist. So if anybody read the 51-page document and like has questions or anything, please let me know now.
Kind of like your 1,500-page document.
It's real boring. 1,500 ones like people.
And depending on when we close to the November election, February, this will all change some more.
I anticipate it going back to live hearings and some other things depending on, seems to ebb and flow about 3-year cycle. So this gets us to basically combine the two policies that people like to change a lot. Just change. Good on that one? Okay, awesome. Policy 4.3.3 is a new policy. We've always had a procedure for disability of accommodations for students. Basically, this is taking our procedures and putting it into a policy. Part of what it seems like it was years ago, the OCR visit that we had with KBOR was they said we have a lot of procedures on campus, but you don't have a lot of policy to tie back to those procedures. Obviously, being that this is a federal compliance standard that you have to provide disability services, probably need to get into a policy. So the goal was to basically write down our procedures into a standardized process and policy. One, to be able to provide students that component to show when we have those audits that we have a procedure and process, and two, it helps with the procedure and process to also hold our academic units and those instructors accountable to provide said services because it's back.
Takes it from a little P and makes it a big.
So that supervisors can have conversations about why.
Mm-hmm.
It's to take the federal regulations and basically summarize it into here's federal, state, all that stuff, why it is necessary at TC. Questions about that?
All I can sit here and think is that Ted Moyer's been cased and Smith at the bottom of the ocean. It's a good start. That's all I can think about.
Okay, Jim, it's your
You heard
turn.
that.
I'm
before,
with you.
obviously.
So we would appreciate a motion to accept revisions and new policies as it should stay.
So excited about this, I moved. I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's you all. But it's necessary.
Yes, it is.
Thanks, guys.
I think
It's tough. It's tough.
Get yourself into trouble.
And this is one of those things that the HLC folks may say, are you aware of the changes? You don't have to know what to do, but that we have informed you. We can't see it.
We were all required to read the 1,501 page document.
But maybe training.
So what you do is you see on page 852.
Neil and I spent more time together on this than we have on anything else to chat about. Anything else for the good of the group before we, you'll see on the upcoming events, we still have listed a ribbon cutting at Wamego, but that is suspended at this time, it's for the cat welding lab. What Pamela and Chris and I have talked about, it also depends upon if Clark County Eco Depot and or the chamber, if they want something done to acknowledge the fact that it's there, it's not the cat lab, but we have that, then we'll do something. We are also working on a favor for Lieutenant Governor Tolan. Help also down the road. He's taking a personal interest in how Caterpillar work, did not work with us as well as the other stuff the state's doing. So, good graces for the state. Anything else? Not me in July unless there's some emergency.
Sorry, there's no emergency.
It's too loud. I didn't mean it out loud.